mean, we got here because of your friend, Julius. Man, tell us, what was it like growing up with Julius, man?
Man, it was pretty dope, man. Me and Julius, we stayed in the same neighborhood, 4 houses down from each other. And, Julius was that type of cat that was probably a smarter person than he was an athlete. Really? The notion back in our era was, athletes ain't smart. So, Julius, man, kind of twisted that. He was very, very smart. He and I were the only 2 African-American males to graduate in our top 10% of our graduating class.
Yeah, I remember you said that on the documentary. How big was that at that time for you guys? Is that rare in Oklahoma City?
Oh, man, super rare, man. It's huge because you probably, John Marshall probably had 300-400 people in our graduating class. So there you go with the numbers. So to have only 2 African-American males, that's huge.
Wow. So y'all play ball together?
We did play basketball. He actually played football and basketball. I only played basketball.
Both sports?
He played both sports.
Wow.
Super athletic. Could do whatever he wanted to do, man. His potential was off the charts. I always tell people that, Julius was that guy that could do both academics and athletics.
Wow. That's kind of that's key, man. So let's go back because I watched the documentary and it was really intense, but I did have some questions.
Sure.
So where were you at the time when you heard about these charges?
So actually, I'm right down the street from the house. So we stayed 4 houses down.
Okay.
I went to Grambling State University. Julius went to OU. So we reconnected back in May of 1999. And around that time, I was coming home, and a guy at the gas station was like, yo, they got your whole neighborhood on lockdown.
The entire neighborhood?
The whole entire neighborhood. I'm like, what? At that time, the demographics in Oklahoma City back in '99 was more predominantly Caucasian than it was African American in our neighborhood. So,
what part?
So we stayed in Northwest Oklahoma City.
Okay, gotcha.
So by default, my mind's like, they're probably looking for a Caucasian male or female.
Right. So because it was rare.
It was rare. We didn't have a lot of blacks at the time in that neighborhood. So when I get to the block, county sheriff, city of Oklahoma City, who else was on site? Man, it was probably 5. City of Edmond was there. They had it all locked down. I was like, wow. So as I get in, I talk to one of the county sheriffs. I'm like, man, what's going on? So the guy's like, we're looking for a murder suspect. I'm like, wow, in my neighborhood? Right? Right? Unbeknownst to me, Julius was the last person on my mind thinking he could be the actual person they're looking for. So when they break it down, man, they were looking for Julius Jones. I'm like, hold on. My boy Julius? And they describe him to the T. And at that time, I kind of look down the street and I see the house. So I see Mr. and Mrs. Jones standing outside. And I knew right then and there that this nightmare was about to begin.
Wow. What was your emotions like, man, when you saw him, or hear about the charges and all that stuff? Because they didn't find him at first, right?
Correct.
Right.
So when they were actually at the house, I knew, because I talked to Julius probably an hour and a half before all this went down. So I knew he wasn't at home.
And he didn't say anything to you or anything like that?
No, he just said, hey, man, I'm doing this. So I knew physically he wasn't at the house. And when the people were around the house, I told the guy, I was like, man, he's not in the house. Well, how do you know? He's not at the house. He's not at the house. So the way they treated the house, you saw it on the documentary.
Yeah, they just tore it up.
They tore it up.
Looking for one person.
One person. They had bad mattresses in the backyard. So how can you get a mattress from upstairs into the backyard?
So do you feel like, like the cops intentionally wanted to send a message?
The culture in Oklahoma City in '99 was, if you are any other body besides a white person, Edmond was their domain.
Okay.
I mean, it wasn't anything to blacks, but the culture was, we have Oklahoma City, and then we have Edmond.
Because of the influx of the African Americans, it was in Oklahoma City, so the whites wanted to go to Edmond.
Absolutely. Wow. And it's different now. It's all integrated now. But 20 years ago, it wasn't like that.
So, what's going through the parents' home? Mr. Jones, what's going through their mind seeing this stuff? Their house is being torn and all that.
Yeah, so Mr. and Mrs. Jones standing outside, I remember Mr. Jones said specifically to one of the county sheriffs, my son It's not in the house. You guys can go ahead and walk on in. The guy's response was, no, we need to wait for our search warrant, wait for the judge to sign it, then we'll proceed. Mr. Jones like, there's nothing to hide, sir. Just go ahead and walk on in. My son's not in there. So I think that the law enforcement waited specifically to get the search warrant so they could send a message, right? Because of this aura. A white male from Edmond, hypothetically, gets murdered by an African-American male, and they weren't too excited about that. So they waited for the search warrant to get in, and you saw the results on the documentary. It was crazy.
Yeah, and I mean, Julius, at the time when he got arrested, he felt like, well, this is going to blow over real soon. He just knew he was innocent. You know, I mean, did you feel the same way at the time?
I did. You know, he calls me from the county jail the next day and says, man, I'm just waiting for to get my bail money. We can get out. They'll drop the charges. We rolling. Wow. Right? Because he was pretty certain that they had the wrong guy. Right. That was his sentiment. But as that time started going over a week or two, he started becoming a little concerned, like, something's not right.
Right.
Something's not right.
So you went, you know Chris, right? You grew up
Chris
with
went to school with us.
When you hear what he did to Julius, man, what was it?
Man, it blew my mind, man. You know, we spent probably, 2 years. Chris transferred in from a different high school and played ball with us. So, you know, to hear him do what he did, and then figure out all the background that goes behind that. You know, the last offense, if y'all haven't seen it, you gotta go check it out. Right. It's crazy. The detail, you know, some of that detail you hear, and then 20 years later, you replaying that detail. So to hear Chris what he did, I'm like, man, that's crazy.
You ever been in touch with him?
I have. I saw Chris. I saw West Side.
You actually saw him?
I saw West Side a year and a half ago. So I've got a basketball organization that we do tournaments for youth. He had a son right before he went in prison. So his son plays for one of these high school teams that was in our tournament. So this is how it went down. He's sitting in the gym. I didn't recognize him. He's got all his hair cut off and stuff. And he stops me. He's like, Jimmy. I kind of look at him like, I don't recognize him. He's like, Jimmy. I'm like, he's like, West Side. So I'm like, man, when did you get out?
Wow.
It's like about a year and a half ago.
So he only served, what, 15?
15 right on the dot.
He was supposed to serve 30. Remember that?
30 mandatory. He got out in 15. So I asked him straight up. I said, hey, man, you know what you did to Julius ain't right, bro.
So you confronted him right then and there?
Face to face, man to man.
What'd he say?
He says, I got to go, bro.
Are you serious?
In bounces.
He didn't say nothing.
I got to go, bro.
That sounds like guilt, bro.
Yes, sir.
That sounds like some guilt,
It's crazy, man. It was kind of surreal seeing him. All the stuff was going down, and I see him face to face. It was crazy. It's crazy.
Was there ever a time you questioned Julius' innocence?
Never.
You have never done that?
Never. Wow. You know, as soon as he called me, the next day, when they arrested him, I could tell by his voice that he really didn't have no clue what was going on. It happened so fast. They apprehended him, took him down, and it just went so fast. He didn't know what the charges were. He kind of heard of the story. He didn't know that some of those guys on the other side were tied to that story. So he didn't really know. They just said, get your attorney, we'll talk about it later. Because the guy I knew in high school, the smart, intelligent, cool dude that everybody liked, Julius, there's no way he could be a killer. No way.
He said he was into women, not trying to kill them.
Exactly, man. Exactly.
He's a lover's man. Yeah. It seemed like to me.
Exactly.
I mean, I hated the fact that I never got a chance to meet him, but you know, hopefully I will meet him.
You will meet him.
You know, I do want to meet him because he seems like a person that, you know, he could be everybody's friend.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. He's got that personality, man, that, you know, you kind of migrate around him. He's so cool and laid back. You can't help but to like him.
Right. So during the trial, man, what was your thoughts on this defense? Because I watched this documentary and I was like, you know, I'm just going to call it out. David McKenzie?
Wow.
You didn't call anybody as the witness, anything. I mean, what was your thoughts on that? You sat through this trial, right?
I couldn't believe it, man. I showed up the first day, and they're picking the jurors. They kind of go into deliberation and stuff, and right off the bat, I could tell that that gentleman just didn't have the experience. So the background on McKenzie is that he got appointed to the case. Julius' first attorney that nobody really knew about, he had a death, so he died.
Oh, wow.
Right, so his original attorney passed away. So that changed the whole dynamic. So Bob Macy, the district attorney at the time, submitted David McKenzie to the case. He was a public defender. And Mr. McKenzie's case for Julius was his first time trying a death penalty case.
Wait a minute. The DA submitted? Come on, man.
So
that's not the way they're supposed to work.
It ain't the way it's supposed to work. We're talking about somebody's life.
To submit that, man.
Exactly.
That's not the way they're supposed to work.
Exactly.
The DA is not supposed to be able to appoint an attorney.
Exactly. And they knew that McKenzie has never tried a death penalty case before. They knew that.
I mean, that's a conflict of interest in itself.
Yes, sir.
So you heard the verdict and you heard what was going down, and they didn't even test the bandana. What was your thoughts on that at the time?
Straight railroad. Straight railroad. My thoughts right off the bat, the third day. I show up to the case, to the courthouse the second day. It was so emotional, so I didn't show up the third day. I couldn't take it, man. I knew at that point that his attorneys had no interest in representing Julius in the proper way. Straight off the bat.
We even heard about the stocking cap and noticed that Julius had short hair, but he didn't even show the picture before that Julius had gotten arrested, on some petty stuff. Before, he didn't show that picture at all.
Not a thing, man. The environment in the courthouse, you can hear boop, you can hear a pin drop. I mean, it was that bad to the point where people were like, McKenzie's not even gonna call any witnesses. He's not gonna counter argue. Nothing. He stands up. I rest my case. So Julius is kind of looking at McKenzie like, what you mean you rest the case? This is my life that you're talking about.
I know we're talking about Julius, but you see this style in the criminal justice atmosphere all the time. And I know, has this made you more aware of what happens in court, seeing what happened with Julius?
It has. It's brought a light to the system itself. I'm going to tell you something that's really unique about Julius. We have this conversation all the time, and he says, you know what? I don't have any ill will against anybody that's part of this system. I said, wow. I said, so you forgive everybody? He says, listen, Jay, I have no ill will against anybody, the attorneys, the judge, nobody. He says, it's a learning process for me, and when I get out, I'm going to reciprocate that back to the public. I said, wow. I said, here you are that you could have been put to death if the state of Oklahoma did not put a moratorium on my death penalty.
Right.
That's deep.
Wow. Yeah. That's deep, man. Are you convinced that Julius' DNA is not on this bandana? Because we now understand that Prater is now going to test the bandana.
Which is exciting.
Are you confident that his DNA is not on
Man, you know what? I'm confident that Julius's DNA is not on there. And if it's not on there, it may be his sisters or brothers. Because when Christopher spent the night, who's to say that he couldn't take a bandana from somebody else from the house?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's exciting.
So you and Julius still close?
Man, we talk every day.
Are you serious, man?
Every day. He calls me every day. I started a fund for him, so we did the rally. We raised some money. Some of the money that I raised, I used to put on his books and put on his phone. So he can call. He can call his people. He calls me every day.
Wow. Every day.
And we talk about the blessing behind the last defense, because let me backtrack. 10 years ago, Julius was trying to find a way to bring exposure for his case.
Right.
We tried what's the company out of Arizona that does the wrongful death? I forget the name of the firm. But we tried them, didn't get anywhere. Innocence Project. So there was a guy that was in prison with Julius that had contact to a firm in Arizona that liked to pick up death penalty cases. We submitted it. Roundabout way, they had contacts with ABC and Valor Davis. The beauty behind that, they started off with X amount of cases. They shrunk that down in a year, and then they shrunk that down to 2 cases, bro. Wow. 2 cases in America, and Julius Jones' case gets picked.
Wow.
So when that happened, Julius knew that finally my story is going to be told to the world.
So do you think Bob Mason just had a hard-on for Julius? I hate to say it, man. What I hear about this guy, he's just, a lot of his cases has even been overturned because of how he handled death penalty cases. Right.
I don't know if my numbers are correct, but I know in that era he had 44 death row convictions, and out of those, 13 have been overturned. Wow.
It's amazing. It's so much that happened in that documentary. So since the last offense, Julius feels hopeful.
You know what? He has been. I'm gonna tell you something about Julius. So he loves to write and draw. His talent is off the charts. He's been receiving so many letters. He called me 2 days ago. He says, "Yo, Jay, man, I can't even write. My hand is locked up."
Really?
From writing people back. That's how many letters. That's how much love the nation is showing Julius Jones, man.
You know what? It's not just black people. It's
right.
white people.
Right.
It's people all over. I mean, he's loved by so many people, man.
Right. You know, at the rally, we had walks of all life. We had Caucasians, we had blacks, we had Hispanics, we had Asians, you know, the love and the support. And we had people outside of Oklahoma drive up to the state capitol to be part of that movement.
So let's get serious right quick, man. Do you think he's running out of time?
You know, here's the blessing.
Okay.
So the state of Oklahoma had a botched execution in 2017, 2016.
Right.
They put a moratorium, a stop on the drug that was used. So right now, there cannot be any executions activated. That is a huge blessing. That gives Julius the time to get through the process and come home.
Do you think he'll get a new trial, or you think he'll just be exonerated?
You know, what we're hoping is the Court of Appeals takes the new evidence and provides an exoneration.
But they denied before about the juror, you know, because there was some race that played in that. How was that when you found out?
Right, man. When I first saw that they denied the first time, I was like, here we go again. But the beauty of exposure, you know, the beauty of the last defense provided some exposure for some of those guys, and they said, we gotta reopen this. We have to. Wow. They looked at it just.
It's so contagious, bro. I mean, people watching this, they're gonna be like, you know, I really want to get behind this, man. What keeps you going?
Right. You know, what keeps me going, man, I told JJ 4 years ago, I said, hey, make a promise to yourself when you do get out that you give back. He's like, done deal. So the exposure from last offense is providing an avenue. It keeps me energized because I see all the influx of letters. People hitting me up every day, man, how can I write them? What can I do for them? What can I send them? What can we do? Not the state of Oklahoma, but across the nation, man. I had 2 people from Australia said, I wish I could fly to Oklahoma City to be part of this rally. That's so dope.
Wow. What's a typical day like for Julius?
Typical day is 23 hours in, 1 hour out the cell.
Are you serious, man?
Wow. Death row at the state of McAllister, what we call the Big Mac.
Yeah, Big Mac. He's underground?
He's underground. Wow. 23 hours in, 1 hour out. So imagine, you know, 8x8 cell, man, being there every day. 19 years straight, knowing that you're an innocent man. That's crazy.
So does he ever talk about the victim? And because did he know the victim, anything like that?
He did not know the victim, but he told me to tell me this when I was at the rally. He said, make sure the people know that I'm sorry about the Howell family and their loss. Right? And he says, we hope we can bring closure for the Howell family. Right? How cool is that to understand that he understands that somebody has had a loss in their family, even though he's been in jail for 19 years, wrongly convicted.
So he's basically saying, listen, somebody needs to serve, but I ain't the guy.
There you go. I'm not the one. I feel sorry for the Howell family. They had a loss, but I'm not that guy.
Maybe it's your man who wouldn't even answer the question before. Maybe it's your man. What you think?
Man, you know, I don't know who actually did it, but justice has to be served. It has to.
How is mom and dad, Miss Jones?
You know, Mrs. Jones, man, I always tell her, I talk to her every week, I always tell her she's probably one of the strongest women I've ever met. I mean, the faith and the foundation she stood on the past 19 years, it's been the same thing every year. Don't worry about it, Jimmy. Don't worry about it. My God's going to bring my baby home. Wow. My God's going to bring my baby home. Wow. Right? Even when some of the pills were getting shot down, her faith was, my baby's going to come home.
She never wavered.
Never wavered. 19 years. So I got mad respect for who she is and what she represents.
Brother and sister, you know, we saw that.
You know, brother, sister, man, Antonio, man, he's been holding strong. Antoinette, you know, I work with her a lot, some of my basketball camps and stuff, and that keeps her engaged and, you know, living on, man, until her brother comes home.
So when he comes home, what do you have planned for him? Seriously. What you got planned for him?
So here's the master plan. We talk all the time about it. His plan is to turn around, tell people his story, and then allow people to learn from that. What's the number one thing? Hey, be mindful about who you associate with.
Right. Because I noticed that he kept saying to himself, he was beating himself down because he was saying that he did make some mistakes.
Right.
You know, hanging around with the wrong crowds, having the influence and all that.
Right.
But one of the things that captivated me, he said he held his emotions during the trial. But after the trial, he had to let go. He
let go. He told me, he said, hey, Jay, he calls me Jay. Hey, Jay, I couldn't break down in front of the cameras because I don't want to portray that. So when he got by himself, he did. He said he cried like a baby because, first of all, he didn't realize that this was about to change his life, because up until this point, he knew he was innocent, but he didn't know all this was about to happen for him. So when the judge looked at him and said, boop, guilty, in death. Wow. That's when JJ said, I just didn't know what to do, man.
Yeah.
I just didn't know what to do.
Yeah, have a timestamp on your life and you don't even know that.
Wow.
Yeah. So what do you want from the public, man?
You know, all we need is just the continued support that we're getting. It's influxing, man. People are really jumping on board. For those who haven't watched The Last Defense, you know, go check it out. It's going to change your life. Everybody stops me like, yo, I didn't know about it, but I watched it, and it's changed my perspective about life, and it's changed my perspective about what to do and what not to do. Julius said right from the front street, he says, I've made some mistakes. I'm not perfect, but I didn't kill anybody.
Wow. So they got the wrong man.
They got the wrong dude. They got the wrong dude.
How has this changed your perception of the justice system?
You know what? Being an African-American male, we grow up with a certain aspect or a certain viewpoint about our judicial system. Right. And when you have somebody that's real close to you go through that, that just takes it to a whole different dimension. It's like, if Julius almost lost his life, how many other people out there is in the same position? And that's what's scary about it.
Yeah. Well, Jimmy, I can't thank you enough, man. I can't thank you enough for just taking out time and just sitting.
Absolutely.
Is there any other questions you want to know? I mean, any other thing that you want to say that I did not ask? Anything like that?
We've got a few more events coming up for Julius. Be in touch online on Facebook, social media.
Just hit you up on Facebook?
Hit me up on Jimmy Lawson on Facebook. We got some good stuff coming. We're going to try to keep that momentum, keep the pressure on the state of Oklahoma, keep the pressure on the Court of Appeals. We're hoping, based on attorneys, we're hoping that maybe the Court of Appeals can provide what they call a solution by the end of September. Okay. Hopefully they can say the bandana is or is not, and then the juror injunction as well. So we got two positive things working at the same time, and hopefully they can come together by the end of September, and they can make a decision, and JJ can come home.
So let me ask you a question. I mean, because so many people will be watching this, and they was talking about the Howell family and all this and that. Would you, I don't know if this is too big of a stretch, but would you work with investigators to at least find out what happened to their loved one?
Oh, absolutely.
Would you guys work with them to find out what happened?
Absolutely, because at the end of the day, people want justice. Right, and we know that Julius Jones is not the right guy. Right. So we're all for it, man. We're all for helping anybody that we can to figure out, to bring closure for that family.
Because I think that family does want some form of closure.
They need some closure.
But I also believe, I think that family wants the right person to pay that closure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm down for it.
Have they said any doubts or anything like that?
I haven't had any contact with the family.
Okay.
But I know they're watching.
But if they want to reach out to you.
Absolutely. Reach out to me. You can find me on Facebook. I'm on social media. You can find me. Put my name in. Give me a shout. I'm always down to help you all bring closure to your family.